Welcome to Lit Vibes Only, where we lit the shit out of books we love and hate. I'm Amanda, the insightful thrill seeker and historical fiction nerd.
And I'm Kelsey, the unhinged, diehard romantic and fantasy reader. We first want to direct your attention to our socials, as always.
You always sound like a flight attendant. I'd like to direct your attention to the placard in front of you.
We are on Instagram at livevibesonly_podcast and on TikTok and YouTube, where you can see our full episodes at Lit Vibes Only Podcast. So come engage with us, have fun. We're having fun. We were just talking about how much we love interacting with you all. That is like the best part. Hearing what books you're reading, what books you have read from our recommendations, and just in general, like interacting with us. It's fun.
Yeah, it's so addictive. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like literally before we started this episode, I was like, someone just commented on a video I posted and we're talking about thriller books. It's great.
Yeah.
Literally what this is about. Just building a lovely, huge book community. And it's fabulous. We love it.
And if you're here now, you're one of the OG listeners. So
exactly. We're still in our first year. So you're getting in on the ground.
But are you doing a Kelsey-ism right now?
I had to come. Like, is that what you say? You get in on the ground? That doesn't sound right.
Get it from the ground. I don't know what you're saying.
Like when you're
like
saying
from
that
the ground
you're like
running?
a part of something. No, like when you're a part of something from the very beginning, from like its inception. Like, are you getting? I don't know. I'm gonna pause
getting
right now.
In on the ground.
Like, I don't know. I don't know. This is just getting
someone
out
there is gonna know.
Yeah.
Please
like, what are they trying to say? But also, don't forget to rate and review as well. We will likely, this is going to be coming out the second week of May. So our sticker giveaway will probably be concluded by then. But if it's not, right? I mean, we hope so. But if we still have a couple stickers, then you can get one. So make sure that you're rating and reviewing us wherever you listen to your podcast, either on Apple or on Spotify.
Any other podcast
or any other major podcasting platform. We love it. You can either write a review for the whole podcast on Apple, or you can just write a comment on your favorite episode. Maybe this episode, tell us what you think, and we'll send you a sticker. So easy.
Heck yeah.
Easy peasy.
So where are we today? We are doing a Lit Rex episode. But before we get into that, I have some book talk drama.
BookTok Tea with Kelsey. Here we go. Let's do it.
So I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, actually, this happened this week, which is now going to be like old news in May. But if you're on BookTok, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There is this really popular book talker named Larry. And she's very sweet. She reads a lot of dark romance, fantasy, and romantasy. And also she reads romances too, but dark romance is one of her favorite genres. And, you know, she says what she thinks about various books. She's going to let you know when she has a negative review of something or didn't like something. She didn't like one I think it's Rena Kent book. Okay. Rena Kent is the author. And she told it like it was, you know, she just was like, I loved these other books and she's still one of my favorite authors, but I didn't like this one. And she did like a funny video about it. She did like a rating video about it and with other books included where she like smiled if she really liked it. She was like, and then put it down. And then if she didn't like it, she'd be like,
just frown.
So come watch us over on YouTube to be able to see what's going on over here.
Expressions.
Smiling and frowning. Anyway, so she didn't like the Rena Kent book. Okay. And then Rena Kent and her were mutuals on TikTok or Instagram. It was one or the other. And so she made a video because Rena Kent ended up unfollowing her after that video, which she doesn't know if it was like because of that video or just because, oh, she's cleaning up her stuff. Like it could have been a number of things, but it was interesting. But she made another video kind of laughing at the fact that she unfollowed her. And she was like surprised in her video and like crying, fake crying that she like unfollowed her. And so it was like a funny video. And then people were like fucking harping on Larry about writing a bad book review of this author, which she didn't write a bad book review. It was just like a video that had a
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
She's like, I
Review.
didn't like this book. I'm
Yeah.
going to tell
Yeah.
you what I think.
Yeah.
And then Larry ended up doing like an entire video on the fact around this drama. It was like, here's what happened. This is what I
Yeah.
did. I thought this video was funny. And people were
Yeah.
just like getting mad at her for what she did. And I'm
Wow.
like,
I
God,
don't
people.
get it. But like that's the
Yeah.
whole point of reading. You're gonna like some things, you're not gonna like other things, and that's
Yes.
okay.
That is
Like,
the entire basis of our podcast. Is
yeah, we
like
don't have to like the same things. And why
yeah,
would we want to always all like the
no.
same things? Like, how boring would that be?
Ah, yes.
I feel like people just, and this is not new. This is not a new topic, obviously, on our podcast, but I
Mm-mm.
feel like folks don't know how to like regulate themselves when somebody disagrees with them. Like it's a skill that people just
Yeah.
no longer possess or maybe never possessed. I don't know, but it seems like it's gotten worse.
I'm not sure. Yeah, and I
Like,
think that like social media, it gets really
oh, for
ramped
sure.
up
Oh, for sure.
because people say really unhinged things on
Mhm.
social media. And I'm
Yeah.
so curious behind those comments that are pretty unhinged. I'm like, is this person actually like meaning this? Or are they just
Yeah.
trying to like create and generate drama?
More drama.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think
I don't.
social media in this age, like we are addicted to drama in a lot
Oh,
of
for sure.
ways.
Oh, for sure. And again, and this is not news, but like people just feel more emboldened to say ridiculous stuff when they don't have to say
Hmm.
it to someone's face when you're just behind a screen and are
Totally.
anonymous. So it's like, why
Yeah.
not? Why not say some really crazy shit that's gonna stir the pot? Like
Yeah. So strange.
there are no consequences. I don't know. And again, we've talked about this before in a previous episode. I feel like not that Bookstagram is drama free because it's not, but it
Mm-mm.
just seems like generally book talk is like where shit's going down.
Well, also because nobody fucking engages in Instagram
I know. I
on
look, y'all, if
Bookstagram.
on Bookstagram, listeners, if you're on Instagram, we've mentioned this before, like, could you just like
Oh
tell us
my
what's going
God.
on out there? Because
It's like fucking
it is
crickets.
it is crickets all the time. Like we have videos, we post them on both platforms,
Hmm.
TikTok and on Instagram, and the amount of engagement is it's not even comparable. It
No.
there's no comparison.
There's
We
like maybe one or two likes, and that's pretty much what it does.
Yeah, and that's it. And like no, literally, I'm trying to think of the last time someone's left a comment. Cannot
Commented.
recall.
Oh
Like
my gosh. I
that's
feel
not
like I
again,
need to look at
that's
this
like
now.
not your husband and like not one of our friends. Like never happens.
Yeah, not my
Nobody
husband.
likes our videos. Nobody responds to like our questions and our stories. It's just
Oh my God, that's
nothing.
the other annoying thing. Like we
Yeah.
post
Like we'll
like
be like,
polls and stuff, and
yeah.
there's
And I don't, if you
nothing.
guys know the secret to cracking Bookstagram,
Yeah.
please let us know because we are trying our hardest and it's working on TikTok. Like our little
Yeah.
following is growing and we're so grateful. But Bookstagram, you are a tough nut to crack and we don't know what we're doing wrong.
We are one follower away from 350.
I know at TikTok. And then on
Yeah.
Instagram, I think we're at like 188 or 189. And we've been holding steady
Yes.
there for like weeks. I
Oh, yeah.
like
There's been
it's
like no new
crazy.
followers for a while.
The only engagement we
Yeah.
get on Bookstagram is when, so I mainly manage quote unquote our Instagram account. And so I'll comment on other people's
Oh, yeah.
videos and like them. And the only kind of interaction we get is like lots of people will like the comments that I
Liking the
leave.
comments.
But like, no, or, and sometimes we'll
Uh,
respond to those. But in terms of our material and like our content, like nothing. It's so disheartening,
Nothing.
guys.
Yeah.
But we're,
Hard. It's
yeah,
hard.
if we lose our TikTok, that's gonna be rough. Like it would be
It
one
would
thing
be
if like
so bad.
yeah, if Instagram is going away, it's like okay, fine, whatever. But TikTok is where it's where our people are at. So we love
Yeah.
you. We love you, book talkers, and we're so happy to be part of your community. And
Okay. The
yeah,
last comment we got on Instagram was from one of our teaser trailers from A Court of Mist and Fury. So that was like a
oh,
week
that was
ago.
okay. That's not that long ago then.
I
What
mean,
was
but
it?
like our last
Wait,
comment on TikTok was like a
was
few
like
minutes
4
ago.
minutes ago.
So there's a big
Yeah,
difference.
there's a big difference. And that one comment was like on Instagram was probably the first comment we'd received in like a week or two, probably. Yeah.
Exactly. So
It's rough out there. It's like, man, nobody likes us. We don't know what we're doing wrong.
Uh,
But
me,
anyhow,
it's
yeah,
my
go ahead.
birthday soon. Well,
Uh-huh.
actually, it'll be past my birthday
When
by
this comes
this
out, yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
How many followers do you think we could get on TikTok by my birthday? It's like less than a month
You're
away, a little less,
I think we can make it
like
to
3 weeks.
400. I think we can make it to
You don't
400.
think we can make it to 500?
By your birthday?
Yeah.
In what, 3 weeks? Is it 3 or 4 weeks? Because your
Yeah.
birthday's it's 4 weeks.
3 weeks away.
I mean, it really depends. Like we posted a video, or I posted a video last week that did insanely well, and we got like
Yeah.
almost 40 new followers from just that one video. So if we get another moment like that, we
Exactly.
could.
Then
All
maybe
right. We'll have to make that our
we'll
goal and
check
we'll
back
report
in.
back. We'll report back. But before we
Yeah.
get too much further down our social media rabbit hole, we want to bring things back to today's episode. And as Kelsey
Heck
mentioned
yeah.
earlier, this is going to be our LitRex episode for the month of May. And
Mhm.
this month we're celebrating AAPI Heritage Month. I've also seen it written as AANHPI Heritage Month because it
Mhm.
also includes not only Asian American and Pacific Islanders, but also Native Hawaiians. So I want to make sure and like put that in there as well, because I think
Mhm.
AAPI still is pretty much like the term that most folks use, and it's starting to shift now, I think, to
Yeah.
AANHPI. So we want to make sure we're getting everybody in there. And then, as with a lot of these heritage months, this month is all about celebrating the culture, history, contributions, and achievements of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders here in our country. As with a lot of these heritage months, this month also, like its origins are in the 1970s. And
So
back in
interesting.
the, I know, I was like, what was, well, if you think about what
About
was happening in our country
civil
at that time,
rights.
it makes sense. And yeah.
Mhm.
So in the late 1970s, there were a couple of different resolutions that were proposed in Congress. And again, as with a lot of other Heritage Month, they were trying to just get a week in May declared as Pacific Asian American Heritage Week. And they
Mm.
wanted the week that was chosen to coincide both with May 7th, because on May 7th, 1843, that was the day of the immigration of the first Japanese to this country.
Whoa.
And they also wanted the week to include May 10th because that marked the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. And since the majority of the people who worked on laying the tracks were Chinese immigrants, it's also a significant moment for Asian American history. So they got their
Okay.
week in May. And then ultimately in 1992, Congress officially passed a law stating that the entire month of May would be annually designated as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, and has gone on to be called, as I said, either AAPI or AANHPI Heritage Month. And so, as
Mhm.
with all of our months, I have two books. Kelsey has two books. We're going to celebrate
Yes, I
both the
do.
authors and
Mhm.
their stories and encourage you to check out all of them. I have read both of my books. I know Kelsey has read, well, you're reading one and
I'm
working.
currently reading one,
Yeah.
and I have read the other one.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, why don't you kick things off for us, Kelsey?
Will do. I just found that, doing these episodes, that it is easier to explain more of the story when you have read it,
Yes,
and
of
really
course.
give your best recommendation. And
Exactly.
so
Yeah. But also as a side
that
note
was
for
my,
folks, if this is your first one, since you just said that, Kelsey, if this is your
Mhm.
first LitRex episode, this is a spoiler-free episode. So we do give you a good sense of
That
like
is
the
true.
story and the plot, but we're
Mhm.
not going to spoil it for you.
Yeah, in our Lidded or Quitted episodes, that's
Yes.
a different story.
All the
But
spoils in that.
yeah, all
All
the
the
spoils.
spoilers.
But here we're just summarizing some of the story. Okay, so I have decided to first highlight The Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong. Helen Wong is an American romance novelist. She was born in Minneapolis, and her mother is a Vietnamese immigrant. And she graduated from Cornell University.
Oh.
And there's honestly not like too much like about her in the mainstream like media. So there wasn't too much to find about her, but her books have been on the New York Times bestseller list. So she is a New York Times bestseller. And then she now is living in Southern California. It didn't even say like the actual city or town, Southern
Mhm.
Customers. So I think she's kind of more of a private person and doesn't have much on like her website either.
Okay.
But she lives with her two husbands.
But there are two
Oh,
husbands.
excuse
This got
me.
real interesting real quick.
She lives with her husband and two kids and has a dog. So those are the main things that I found out about Helen during my research. One
I love
second.
that. The two husbands.
Oh, wouldn't that be hilarious?
Little polygamy
Okay.
going on.
And then going into the Kiss Quotient, this is a romance novel and it is of a series. I think they can be standalone series, but there are 3 in this series. And the main the FMC, is autistic. And she tries to hide it from the man she is. It's not quite fake dating, but it is a form of fake dating. Yeah, it is actually a very unique story. So I started listening to it just yesterday,
Mhm.
and I've gotten through quite a big chunk of it. But how would I describe this? She is getting some familial pressure around getting married and settling down. And so her mom is pretty much the main instigator on that point. And she doesn't like dating. She doesn't like a lot of touch from people and doesn't navigate social situations very well. And so she knows this about herself. And so she tries to get help from somebody to date, but then also how to like physically be with somebody, whether that's like cuddling all the way to sex. And
Mm.
so she ends up fake dating someone in order to get some of this experience so that she can land
Oh.
herself a real man in the real
Mm.
world.
Interesting.
And I just had one quote from a reader, another author, Lauren Blakely. Clever, sexy, and a breath of fresh air. The kiss quotient is intoxicatingly witty and romantic. Whew, I
Mm.
freaking got through that.
Mouthful.
And it also was a Goodreads Choice Award winner in 2018. And as a romance novel, it has a 3.88 rating on Goodreads, which is
That's pretty
pretty high
good.
for a romance
It is
novel.
pretty high. Yep.
It's leaning towards 4.0. So I don't know the last romance novel that I saw was a 4.0.
Oh yeah.
It's so
There's
hard
not a
to
lot.
get a
Yeah. It's pretty rare.
4.0 as a romance novel because yeah, it's a different genre that doesn't
But
have.
it's so weird though, because I feel like romance readers are so enthusiastic about the books that they love. And so you would think that there'd be like 4 stars, 5 stars.
I think you're meaning the romantasy readers.
Oh, maybe
Cause
that's
like
what
the
I'm.
romantasy
Yeah,
readers are freaking diehards
that is
of their
true. That's
genre.
true.
But
I guess
like,
I just assumed the same thing was true for romance
yeah.
readers, but maybe not.
No, I don't think so. I would say the romantasy readers and then dark romance readers are like the most
Oh,
intense about their
okay.
genre.
Okay. That tracks.
Yeah. So I'm having fun with this book and I am so curious if other people out there would enjoy it as much as I am.
Yeah.
So, if you read it, let me know.
I love how it's both connected to this month's heritage and
Oh,
also to
yeah.
our previous month with neurodiversity awareness because she's autistic. So that's like great. So you
Mhm.
can keep building on the books that we recommended last month
Mhm.
as well. Awesome. Thank you, Kelsey. So, my first recommendation is Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. And I love her. I have read all of her books. And she, like Helen, is a New York Times best-selling author of 3 novels and many short stories. I have not read any of her short stories, but like I said, I have read all of her novels. And she is, very highly regarded, very well known. Her fiction and her essays have appeared in the New York Times, The Guardian, a bunch of other really well-known publications. She is the recipient of the Pushcart Prize. She got a fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts and a Guggenheim Fellowship, among many others. So just she's doing the thing and is really successful. The one fact that I love about her, she's also a Midwest girl like me. She was born in Pittsburgh, but then grew up in Shaker Heights in Ohio. And that's actually where my great aunt and uncle lived.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
yeah. My great aunt is still there, but my great uncle has passed away. So I'm very familiar with Shaker Heights because we'd go up and visit them. And her father immigrated to the United States from Hong Kong back in the 60s and was a physicist at NASA. And then her
Whoa.
mother was a chemist and a professor who taught at Cleveland State University. So
Dang.
very comes from very intelligent heritage and family. So maybe it's no surprise that
Yeah.
she's gone on to like crush it. She has, kind of been involved in writing, since high school. She was the co-editor of her high school's literary magazine. And then she went on to get her bachelor's in English from Harvard and then her MFA from the University of Michigan, and then went on to
Wow.
actually teach writing at the University of Michigan after that. So has a little bit of a career in academia too. Her debut novel
Very cool.
was published in 2014. It took her 6 years to write, and it's called Everything I Never Told You. And like many of her books, it was a New York Times bestseller. It was a New York Times notable book back in 2014. It was Amazon's #1 best book of 2014. It was the winner of the Massachusetts Book Award, the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, and the ALA's Alex Award. So very highly awarded. It was translated into over 30 languages and is
Wow.
in the process of being adapted into a movie. So
Mm.
that was her first book, like right out the gate, just like instant overnight success. And then her
Nice.
second novel, which I think is the one that most people are familiar with, is Little Fires Everywhere, which was published in 2017. And it was made into a Hulu miniseries back during the pandemic in 2020.
Oh.
And so I think a lot of folks kind of got to know that story in that book because of that particular miniseries. But as with her first book, it also was a New York Times bestseller, an Indie Next bestseller, was an Amazon's best fiction book of 2017. It was named a best book of the year by over 25 different publications, on and on. And then on Goodreads, it won the Goodreads Reader's Choice Award in 2017 for fiction.
Mm.
So just again, she knows how to write a good book. And this book, also Little Fires Everywhere, spent a year on the New York Times bestseller list. So
Yeah.
she's just fabulous, and I have enjoyed all of her books. The one that I'm going to talk about today is her most recent book, which was published in 2022, Our Missing Hearts. And it was also an instant New York Times bestseller. Shocking. And it's 335 pages. It's a little bit lower a rating than Kelsey's book. It's a 3.8 on Goodreads.
Mm.
And it was nominated for Reader's Favorite Fiction on Goodreads back in 2022. But I love this book because it has an interesting premise, which is why I picked it up to begin with. It is a story that's like set in the near future. So it's a little bit dystopian. And if you've listened to this podcast, you know that both Kelsey and I are a fan of like, especially YA, like dystopian novels. So that definitely caught my attention. But essentially, it's set in like this near future America, right after the
Yeah.
country has gone through this horrible economic collapse that everybody calls the crisis. And this economic
Mm.
collapse is primarily blamed on China. So after this horrible crisis, the government passes this piece of legislation, or actually a whole bunch of legislation called PACT, which stands for Preserving American Culture and Traditions. And the whole point of this legislation is to
Mhm.
basically censor any ideas that they consider un-American, because they're really trying to rebuild like unity in the country and faith in the government and all of these things. And because this economic collapse was largely blamed on China,
Oh
POWs, or
God.
persons of Asian origin, during this time are subject to a lot of scrutiny, greater surveillance, a lot of discrimination. And the
Hmm.
crazy thing about this group of laws is that any kid who is being exposed to unpatriotic ideas by their parents are taken from their homes and then rehomed with foster parents who are going to basically raise these children up right.
Oh my
So
God.
that's the world of this story. And the main character is this little boy named Bird. He's 12 years old, and his mother is a Chinese American poet who is pushing back against all of the horrible things happening in the government. And she ends up 3 years prior to the start of the story, essentially abandoning the family. And so Bird is really heartbroken about this, doesn't really understand why his mom has left. And the story kicks off when he receives this mysterious cryptic letter from his mom with this weird drawing in it. So I'm not going to say anything else about that. And it's
Ooh.
essentially, in many ways, this kind of story of him looking for his mother and trying to figure out what happened, why did she leave, and
Mm.
processing all of that. It touches obviously on racism. That's a really key aspect of the story, and a lot of the anti-Asian hate that you see
Mm.
unfolding in the story It
Yeah.
talks about art and like the power it has to create and facilitate change, especially when you are pushing back against a problematic government. So very timely.
I know. I was like,
State of things in the United States. It also
God.
touches on this idea of like how, supposedly civilized communities can actually both ignore and uphold and perpetuate horrible injustices. Again, very timely. And then
Mhm.
larger themes of family, redemption, and hope. When I was going back to refresh my memory on this book and reminding myself what the plot was, I was like, ooh, yeah, this book, even though it was written a couple of years ago, it very much speaks
E-
to our current world that we're inhabiting.
yeah. Oh
So not
gosh.
only is it great because it is, giving this beautiful perspective and insight into a particular Asian American experience, but it also,
Mhm.
I think, connects to a lot of larger issues that we all, right, I think can connect to and understand in various ways. So check
Mhm.
out this book. Check out any of her books. Again, I've read them all. She's one of my favorite Asian American authors, and there's a reason why her books do so well.
Sounds like a great book, a solid
Yeah.
book. I might even be interested in reading it.
Yeah, I think you might like it. Again, it's like a little bit slower. It's not super plot driven, it's more character driven, but
Mhm.
it's beautiful and poignant and yeah, touches on a lot of things that I think will resonate with you probably.
All right. Okay.
Hmm.
Moving on to my second recommendation, Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. So, while I was doing my research for Michelle, I was very surprised to learn that she's not only a writer, she's also a director and a vocalist in a band and is probably
Oh,
more well
yes.
known
Hmm.
as being this vocalist in her
Hmm.
band. The band is called Japanese Breakfast. And she also directs the music videos or the majority of the music videos for their band.
Cool.
So,
Very cool.
yeah, so that was just like, whoa. I
Yeah.
didn't see
That
it
I
coming.
did know about her.
And she also is a Grammy nominated artist. Yeah, so very cool. She is Korean American
Mhm.
and grew up in Eugene, Oregon, which is not so far from
Oh, yeah,
us.
it's not so far from
And
us.
if you've read Crying in H Mart, you would already know that because Crying in H Mart is her memoir and it takes place most of the time in Eugene, Oregon. But anyway, Crying in H Mart is her debut and only novel. It was published in 2021. And she also has published essays in Glamour, The New Yorker, and Harper's Bazaar. And she is a
Mhm.
New York Times bestseller. And moving into Crying in H Mart, it actually spent 60 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So a little over a year.
Yeah.
Again,
She
her
beat out
debut
Celeste.
novel. Yeah. When you said that, I was like, dang, that's a long time. And I was like, wait, but didn't I said 60 weeks? Oh, dang.
Yeah, yeah.
That's even
Yeah.
longer. So it was published in again 2021. It's a memoir. And so the book deals with a lot of grief and loss. And it also is a coming of age story because it's
I
her
love that.
memoir. It is very well written, and I would say that the emotions are extremely raw
Hmm.
in this. There is a scene of crying in H Mart, and so she goes through that. But
Hmm.
the most interesting part of her story is that she has kind of this role reversal with her mother because
Okay.
it really, the whole book, and it's not a surprise, it's not like me spoiling anything, but it's that her
Hmm.
mom dies. It's about her mom's death in the
Hmm.
book. And it starts out with her as this like teenager, like
Hmm.
rebellious teenager. Can you only imagine? Like, a
Hmm.
young girl wanting to be in a band
Hmm.
with this traditional Korean mother. And her mom knows all of the things to cook for a family. And like, even recipes in this book are like really important and like
Hmm.
connect her to one, her mother, but to her culture. And
Hmm.
it's just a beautiful memoir of her story. And so, this kind of daughter mother reversal is that she resents her mom a lot growing up because she is this rebellious teenager and young woman. But then when her mom gets sick, she's taking care of her, and her mom can't do the things that she would normally do. And then the daughter is taking on this kind of role. And that is definitely like explained and well written throughout the book. And so those are the reasons why I would recommend it. It has a
Yeah.
4.25
Wow.
rating on Goodreads. and is a short book. It's only 256 pages. Packs a
Yeah.
lot in there for that tiny little book.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
mean, everyone I
crying in H
know
Mart.
who has read it has loved it. And I've
Yeah.
had that book recommended to me multiple times. I started it
Yes.
several years ago and I just couldn't do it. Maybe I need to give it another try. But yeah, I've only heard good things about it
Yeah.
from people who have read it. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I will jump into my last book. I love this book so much. It is Free Food for Millionaires by Min
Hmm.
Jin Lee. And I read this book, I want to say maybe last year. It was one of those books that had been on my list for a while. And I was like, I'm just going to read the thing. It was available at
Hmm.
the library. So Min Jin Lee is a Korean American author and journalist. She was actually born in Seoul and then immigrated to the United
Mm.
States in the 1970s when she was a kid, when she was 7. And then from there went on to go to Yale and get her bachelor's in history. And it was there that she was awarded both the Henry Wright Prize for nonfiction and the James Ashman Veach Prize for fiction. So just like had a bang up time getting her bachelor's. And then, because that wasn't enough to get your bachelor's at Yale and win all these prizes, she went on to study law and get her JD from Georgetown
Wow.
University. And
Hmm.
actually ended up working for just a couple years as a corporate lawyer and then quickly realized like this is not for me. She hated the long
Hmm.
hours. She had some health issues that came up. And so she ended up quitting her job as a lawyer and shifted to writing and it has served her well. So as I said, she's both an author and a journalist. So she has a lot of essays and articles on books, travel, and food that have been included in a bunch of different publications. I'm not going to list them all here, but some of the ones that I think will be most recognizable are the New York Times Book Review, Condé Nast Traveler, Vogue, Food and Wine, and the Wall Street Journal. And so, in addition to her writing pretty regularly, pretty consistently, like I said, there's essays and articles, she's written 2 full-length novels. And again, I read both of her books. So I read Pachinko, which was published
Oh.
back in 2017. It was made into a TV series as well, which I haven't watched,
Oh.
but
Maybe
I
that's how I realized.
loved the book. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
the book is so good. I was actually going to have Pachinko be my recommendation, but Pachinko is like fully set in Korea. And I was like, I know it's Asian American Heritage Month, so I want to have
Oh,
a story that's
uh-huh.
based here in our country. So I
I
chose
see.
Free Food from Millionaire. So again, for both Min Jin Lee and for Celeste Ng, I've read all of their books and love all of them. So Pachinko was published in 2017. It was a national bestseller. It was a New York Times Editor's Choice and an American Booksellers Association's Indie Next Great Reads book. That is a mouthful. But what we're going to focus on today is actually her first novel, which was published quite a while ago at this point. It was published back in May of
Oh.
2007.
The year
So
I graduated high school. That's so
I was like, oh,
funny.
I was like a sophomore in college. Yeah, it was a long time ago, y'all. Back in the day. But it is a longer book. It's 577 pages. And kind of like with Pachinko, she tends to write stories that encompass longer spans of time. It can be several years,
Mm.
several decades. And so they do tend to be more of these kind of sweeping epics versus just something that's happening within a really short time frame. So both of her books are quite long. This is a 3.85 Goodreads rating on Goodreads. I think I said that already. But it focuses on the story of this young woman named Cassie Han. And she is the daughter of Korean immigrants. So it's very much telling like this first gen story.
Mm.
And focusing on, again, which we've seen a lot of stories like this, that conflict, and kind of what you were pointing out as well, where you have very traditional parents who are trying to
Hmm.
maintain their culture and traditions and heritage in this new country. And then you have their children who are trying to navigate these two worlds now, where they
Hmm.
have this very traditional home life and then they're out in the United States in this culture trying to be accepted and to be welcomed and understood and not be othered. So, anyhow, she finds herself in that space. She grows up in Queens, and the book starts. She's just graduated from Princeton. And when she was at Princeton, she was, surrounded by a lot of elitism, right? People who came from a lot of money, a lot of people who are white and privileged. And so now that she's back home, she is struggling because she still wants to kind of maintain this privileged existence, these spending habits that she has grown accustomed to, but she doesn't really have the means to do that. And there's that tension between those desires and then again her humble upbringings and her parents' devotion to their Korean culture and their identity. So that's kind of how the book starts and is like the underlying issue that runs throughout the entire story. And like I said, really just dives into that tension between folks who are, trying to have a solid relationship with their parents and be respectful and accept and acknowledge and celebrate their culture and also be American, whatever that means, right? And struggling to find their place. So again, it's a very much another character-driven book, more so than like plot. But I love spending time with Cassie and this cast of characters. There are issues, again, it touches on issues of racism. Obviously, there's a lot to do with class because even within the Korean community in this story, there's like the wealthy Koreans, right, who've done really well for themselves and have like startup companies and are like owning businesses versus the people like her parents who are working in a dry cleaners, right, and don't necessarily own a business and aren't incredibly wealthy. So there's that. There's also gender, right? So is she going to be like a proper quote unquote Korean girl and get married and have a family and kind of do things by the book in that sense? And so gender comes in. Religion is also a really big thing in this book because a lot of Koreans identify as Christian. And so that is also an element that comes up and impacts the characters in the plot. And then just general themes around, identity, like who are you and who gets to decide who you are and how much of that is based on your upbringing versus like the choices that you're making for yourself. And yeah. So it's a great book. I highly recommend, even though we're only supposed to be recommending two, I also recommend both of these books by her as well. I think you can't go wrong with either one. She's such an incredible talent. And it's a book that when you finish either book, when you close the book, you're going to miss the characters. Like you're going to feel like you really got to know them and just like spend time in their world. And I felt that way for both of these.
That's a good feeling.
It's honestly one of my favorite feelings. Like, yes, I love a good twisty plot and a thriller that's fast paced. But for me, when I've like become friends with the characters in the book and I close it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to see them again unless I reread it, right? I live for those moments. It's great.
Yeah. Sweet.
So those are our recs. Kelsey, do you want to recap yours really quickly?
Yeah, so I recommended The Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong and Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner.
And mine were Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng and Free Food for Millionaires by Min-Jin Lee. And again, I recommend all of the books written by both of those authors. And I have read all of them, so I feel like I can vouch for them 100%. So yeah, make sure to check those out. If you have read them already, let us know what you thought. Or let us know which one you are planning to check out. We'd love to know. I'll run through our socials one more time since Kelsey did it so beautifully at the beginning. So again, you can leave that comment. There's no awkward pause. I'm so proud of you. What progress. So if you want to leave that comment and feedback, you can do that on our socials on Instagram at litvibesonly_podcast, or you can hop over to TikTok. That's Lit Vibes Only Podcast. You can check out the video episode on YouTube. That's also a lot of fun if you're more of a video watcher versus a podcast listener. And I think that's it for us today. So thanks for hanging out and we'll see you next Monday.
See you next Monday.